The house fell silent when his parents handed me a contract and declared, "Sign this. All your assets now belong to the family." My husband smirked and said, "It's just a formality, babe." I leaned back and smiled. "Then you'll love what's in my safe deposit box." Their faces twisted in panic as the lawyer walked in. I met Daniel 6 years ago in Chicago. I was in my late 20s, focused on my career, and had worked hard to get where I was. Real estate was my thing. I flipped houses, made smart investments, and built a comfortable life for myself. Nothing flashy, but solid. Secure. Daniel, on the other hand, came from money. Or so I thought. He had the charm, the confidence, the expensive taste. He never talked about money much, but he always had the best suits, the newest gadgets, the high-end everything. His parents, William and Eleanor, were the same way. They had an old money attitude, like they were better than everyone else. Their house was massive, full of antique furniture and family portraits, the kind of place that looked rich. I wasn't some clueless, wide-eyed girl. I knew rich people. I worked with them all the time. And something about Daniel's family felt off. His parents made these little comments, like, "You're so lucky to be joining our family, and a woman like you must be thrilled to have this kind of stability." I should have asked why they assumed I needed stability. Daniel had moments that made me uneasy too. He borrowed money and forgot to pay it back. He once suggested I put my name on a house he wanted to buy, saying it would be easier for tax reasons. I shut that down. But still, I let these things slide. I told myself it didn't matter. Until the night they made their move. Daniel and I had been married for 2 years when his parents invited us over for dinner at their estate. It wasn't unusual. They liked their fancy family dinners, with expensive wine and long, drawn-out conversations about legacy and tradition. But that night, something felt different. The moment we sat down, there was this tension in the air. Daniel seemed excited. His mother was practically glowing. His father, always stoic, had a satisfied look on his face. Halfway through dinner, William cleared his throat and pulled out a thick stack of papers. He placed it in front of me like it was a gift. "We've been thinking about the future," Eleanor said, her voice warm, almost maternal. "About what's best for the family." I glanced at Daniel. He was watching me closely, waiting. "We need to ensure stability," William added, sliding a pen toward me. "This contract will allow us to combine our resources. One strong financial unit working together." I picked up the first page and started reading. They wanted me to sign over everything. My savings, my investments, my real estate portfolio, even my personal bank accounts. All of it would be put into a family trust, which, of course, was controlled by them. My stomach twisted. "It's just a formality, babe," Daniel said smoothly. I looked at him. He was smiling like this was all normal, like I should have expected it. "You trust me, don't you?" Something snapped inside me. I leaned back in my chair, took a breath and smiled. "Then you'll love what's in my safe deposit box." The room went silent. Daniel's smile faltered. Eleanor's fingers clenched around her wine glass. William's jaw tightened. I watched their faces shift, their confidence waver. They had expected me to be surprised, maybe even flattered. But I wasn't playing their game. "What's in the box?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. "Oh, just some paperwork," I said casually. "A few documents. A little something I put together before we got married. For protection." The silence stretched. Then, as if on cue, the butler stepped into the room. "Ma'am," he said. "Your lawyer is here." I wish I had a camera to capture their faces. Daniel went pale. Eleanor looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "William?" He just stared at me, his grip on the contract tightening. A second later, Teresa, my lawyer, walked in. "Good evening," she said, setting her briefcase down on the table. "I understand there's a contract my client is expected to sign." Eleanor was the first to recover. "This is a private family matter," she said sharply. "There's no need for lawyers." Teresa ignored her and picked up the contract. She flipped through it, her eyes scanning the pages. Then she let out a short laugh. "Wow," she said, shaking her head. "This is blatant financial manipulation." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "It's not like that," he started, but Teresa cut him off. "Actually, it is." She turned to me. "If you sign this, they'd have complete control over your assets. They could drain your accounts, sell your properties, and legally, you wouldn't be able to do a thing about it." Eleanor's face turned red. "It's just about trust," she snapped. "Right," Teresa said dryly. "That's why it explicitly states that they have control over withdrawals, property sales, and financial decisions. But you would have no access without approval." She turned to me. "Good thing you have a lawyer who actually reads the fine print." Daniel stood abruptly. "Why are you acting like this?" he demanded. "Why am I acting like this?" I repeated, my voice calm. "You just tried to steal everything I own." Eleanor's voice turned sickly sweet. "Sweetheart, this is just a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "It's not." I took a deep breath and stood. "And I think I'm done here." As I stood up to leave, Daniel grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to make a statement. His smirk was gone, replaced with something colder. Don't do this, he muttered under his breath. You don't want to make enemies here. Enemies? I yanked my hand free and looked him in the eye. You already made me one. Eleanor suddenly switched tactics. She let out a shaky laugh and placed a delicate hand over her chest, like a soap opera actress trying to calm her nerves. Darling, you're overreacting. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't say a word. She kept going. We only meant to protect you. This world is dangerous. Money can be lost so easily, and we just wanted to make sure you were safe. That we were all safe. Safe. Right. Safe from what, exactly? Myself? Teresa, my lawyer, crossed her arms. If that were true, why did you structure the trust so that my client had no control over her own money? William exhaled through his nose, clearly running out of patience. He glared at his wife, then at Daniel. This is becoming unnecessary, he said. We should just move forward like adults. I nearly laughed. Like adults? You mean like how adults try to steal from their own family? I shot back. His face darkened, but I wasn't intimidated. The truth was, their desperation was showing. They thought they had me cornered, that I would be too emotional, too shocked to think straight. They had no idea who they were dealing with. That's when Eleanor dropped the next bomb. I suppose, she said with a small sigh, this means you're not interested in the inheritance either. My head snapped toward her. Inheritance? Daniel shot his mother a warning look, but it was too late. The word was already out in the open. Oh, Eleanor said, her voice airy and casual. Did Daniel not tell you? His grandfather's estate. The one in Rhode Island. The family's real wealth. I felt Teresa's eyes flick toward me. She was thinking the same thing I was. This wasn't just about my money. The estate is in probate, Eleanor continued. And soon, we'll gain full control. But with your attitude. She tilted her head, letting her sentence hang in the air. I understood what she was doing. She was dangling a carrot in front of me. She thought I'd drop my guard, that I'd be tempted by the promise of more wealth. But what I saw wasn't an opportunity. It was a pattern. This family had a history of taking things that didn't belong to them. They were always scheming, always planning to get their hands on something someone else built. And Daniel. Daniel had known about this. He had kept this from me. I turned to him. Were you ever going to tell me? He ran a hand through his hair. I was going to bring it up later, okay? When the timing was better. Better for who? He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. He never planned to tell me. We left that night without another word. In the car, Teresa sighed and rubbed her temples. You realize what this means, right? Yeah, I muttered. They were after more than just my money. Exactly. She tapped her fingers against her briefcase. If this estate is as big as they're making it sound, you can bet they'll do anything to keep control of it. I stared out the window, my thoughts racing. What are the odds Daniel has debt? I asked. Teresa gave me a sharp look. You think he's hiding something? I know he is. Because it all made sense now. The expensive suits, the flashy lifestyle, the way he always talked like he had money but never actually paid for anything. And if he was in debt, then this trust wasn't just about controlling me. It was about saving himself. The next morning, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I hired a private investigator. I wanted everything. His finances, his credit history, his past business dealings, everything. And what he found? It was worse than I thought. Daniel was drowning in debt. He had multiple credit cards maxed out. Personal loans. Even a business loan he took out under my name without telling me. I saw red. Not only had he lied, he had stolen from me. And I wasn't about to let it slide. That night, I confronted him. How long have you been stealing from me? Daniel blinked. What are you talking about? I threw the papers onto the table. You took out a loan under my name. You've been hiding debt. Lying to me. And you wanted me to sign away everything so you could fix your mess. For the first time, he didn't try to deny it. Instead, he did something worse. He laughed. A cold, bitter laugh. You were always so damn careful, he muttered, shaking his head. I thought I could make you see the bigger picture. That you'd understand we needed to be smart about our future. But you just don't get it, do you? My chest tightened. So this was always the plan? He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. You have no idea what you've just started. I took a step back. Are you threatening me? Daniel didn't answer. He just gave me one last look before grabbing his coat and walking out the door. I stood there, my hands clenched into fists. I wasn't scared. I was angry. And if he thought this was over, he was dead wrong. After Daniel walked out that night, I barely slept. My mind raced, piecing together every red flag, every lie, every manipulation. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had been planning this for a long time. And I had let him. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Teresa, you need to come to my office. Now. I could hear the urgency in her voice, so I didn't ask questions. I just got in my car and drove. When I walked in, she was already waiting with a file on her desk. You're not going to like this, she warned, sliding it toward me. I opened it, And my blood ran cold. There was another woman. Actually, there were two. Daniel wasn't just lying about money. He was lying about everything. Teresa leaned forward. Meet Lisa and Hannah. Two pictures. Two women. Both younger than me, both stunning. Lisa was with him 2 years ago. He promised to marry her. Took out a loan in her name and drained her savings before ghosting her. My stomach turned. Hannah was last year. Same story, but he never actually broke things off with her. I stared at the pictures, trying to process. So, he was cheating? Teresa nodded. Well, married to you, yes. But here's the kicker. She flipped to another document. He was also engaged to Hannah. I blinked. Wait, what? Yeah, Teresa said. He proposed. Gave her a ring. Planned a wedding. She thinks she's about to marry him in 6 weeks. My mouth was dry. So he was married to me, engaged to someone else, and scamming both of us? Teresa exhaled. Pretty much. And that's when it hit me. The Rhode Island estate. That inheritance his family was obsessed with. Daniel needed a wife on paper to gain access to it. That's why he kept me around. That's why he pushed for the trust. He wasn't just trying to steal my money, he was trying to replace me before I could figure it out. I needed to talk to Hannah. Teresa set up a private meeting at a coffee shop the next day. When she walked in, I almost felt sorry for her. She was glowing, practically floating with excitement. She thought she had a fiancé. She had no idea she was his next target. I introduced myself, and the moment I said Daniel's name, I watched her face change. How do you know him? She asked, suddenly guarded. Because he's my husband. Silence. Then, that's not possible. I placed my wedding ring on the table. Hannah's hands shook as she reached for her bag. She pulled out her ring and placed it beside mine. Identical. That's when she started crying. She told me everything. Daniel told her he was coming into an inheritance, but needed to be married to secure the money. He promised that once everything was finalized, they'd move to Europe, start fresh, live a life of luxury. He had already convinced her to sign over her savings. I clenched my fists. Do you still have contact with him? I asked. She nodded, wiping her tears. He's supposed to take me to meet his family this weekend. I exhaled slowly. We're going to crash that little reunion. Hannah agreed to go along with my plan. We didn't tell Daniel we knew. Instead, she acted like nothing was wrong. She texted him, kept the engagement moving forward, even played along when he gushed about their future together. Meanwhile, I was working in the background. I hired a forensic accountant to dig through his finances. Turns out, Daniel had a hidden offshore account where he'd been funneling money. The debts I found earlier? Just the tip of the iceberg. Then I dug into his parents. Remember that Rhode Island estate? Turns out, it wasn't legally theirs yet. The probate process was messy, and they needed a stable heir to gain control. A stable married heir. Daniel was supposed to be that person. But now? Now I had everything I needed to burn it all down. The night of the family dinner came fast. Daniel thought he was bringing his sweet, naive fiancée to meet his loving parents. Instead, he was about to get the shock of his life. Hannah and I arrived together. I walked in first. Daniel's parents were already seated at the grand dining table, sipping wine like royalty. Eleanor's face twisted in confusion when she saw me. What are you doing here? She snapped. I smiled. I wouldn't miss family night for anything. Daniel walked in behind me, arm in arm with Hannah. And then? He froze. His face drained of color. I watched the panic settle in as his brain scrambled for a way out. Babe, he said, forcing a smile at Hannah. Why is she here? Hannah crossed her arms. You tell me. Silence. His mother stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I won't have this drama at my table. I laughed. Oh, trust me. You'll want to hear this. I turned to Teresa, who was standing quietly by the doorway. Would you like to begin? She stepped forward and pulled out her files. Let's start with fraud, she said, flipping to the first page. And then we'll get to bigamy. The room exploded. Eleanor gasped. William slammed his glass down. Hannah threw her engagement ring at Daniel's chest. And Daniel? Daniel just sat there, staring at me with a look I'll never forget. Pure, unfiltered hatred. He knew. I had destroyed him. And the best part? I wasn't finished yet. Silence. Not the kind of silence where people are processing information. Not the kind where someone is waiting to speak. This was the kind of silence before a bomb explodes. Daniel sat frozen, gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. His mother's face twisted in a mixture of horror and fury, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the right words. His father just stared ahead, the weight of everything sinking into his face like years of bad decisions hitting all at once. Then fraud? Eleanor spat, regaining her voice. This is absurd. Where did you even get this ridiculous claim? Teresa, calm as ever, placed a thick folder onto the table and slid it toward them. It's all in there, she said simply. Bank records, loan documents, forged signatures, and, Oh, she reached for another paper, proof that Daniel took out a business loan under his wife's name without her knowledge. That alone is a felony. Daniel flinched, but Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. This is a family matter, she snapped. No, I said, my voice level. This stopped being a family matter the moment you tried to steal from me. This is a legal matter now. And then Hannah spoke. And what about the bigamy? She demanded, arms crossed. Because last time I checked, I was engaged to a single man, not some lying, married scam artist. Daniel finally moved. His chair scraped against the floor as he stood. Hannah, he said carefully, his voice soft. I can explain. She let out a bitter laugh. Oh, I'd love to hear this. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal looking for an escape. Okay, fine, he muttered. Yes, I was seeing you while I was still married. But it wasn't what you think. My marriage to her was over long ago. He gestured toward me without looking. We were just dragging things out. I scoffed. Dragging things out? I repeated. You literally tried to trick me into signing over my entire net worth. Sounds pretty active to me. Hannah turned to him, her eyes narrowing. So everything you told me was a lie? The future, the wedding, her voice broke for a second. You told me I was the one. For a moment, something flashed in Daniel's eyes. Regret? Panic? It was hard to tell. I meant it, he said. I wanted us to have a future, Hannah. While you were still married, she snapped. No answer. Eleanor, still fuming, turned on me. You set this up, she accused. You're trying to ruin us. I laughed. I actually laughed. Ruin you. I repeated. You did that yourselves. I just put the truth on display. Daniel had been silent too long. That's when I knew he was about to snap. You think you've won? He finally said, his voice low. Everyone turned to look at him. He wasn't panicked anymore. He was angry. You act like you're the victim here, he growled, eyes locked onto me. But let's be honest, this was always about power for you. You liked feeling superior. You liked keeping everything locked away, so I had to come to you for money. I raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting way to describe me protecting my finances from a compulsive liar. His nostrils flared. You never trusted me. You never gave me a reason to. I was your husband, he exploded, slamming his fist onto the table so hard the glasses rattled. You were supposed to stand by me, not turn on me like this. Hannah took a step back. Eleanor looked shaken. William, for the first time that night, spoke. Sit down, he ordered. His voice was quiet, but the authority in it was clear. Daniel hesitated, chest rising and falling fast. Then, slowly, he sank back into his chair. Teresa cleared her throat. Since emotions are high, let's cut to the chase, she said, flipping through her notes. First, she held up a document. Hannah has already reported the fraud regarding the money taken from her. That's one charge against you, Daniel. His jaw clenched. Second, she continued, we have already spoken to law enforcement about the fraudulent business loan. And, considering the forged signature, that's another charge. Eleanor gasped. You wanted the police? Of course, I said, staring at Daniel. Did you really think I was just going to let you walk away? His hands curled into fists. Third, Teresa went on, completely unfazed. The Rhode Island estate. That inheritance you were banking on? It seems probate court has some interesting information about how deep in debt this family really is. William's head snapped up. What are you talking about? Teresa smiled. Oh, you didn't know? Your assets are frozen. The air shifted. Eleanor's face drained of color. No, that's not possible. It is, Teresa said. Turns out, the real reason you wanted my client to sign everything into a family trust was because you needed her money to pay off your debts. Eleanor shot up from her seat. This is a lie. But the way her voice cracked? She knew. William knew. Daniel knew. They were done. Eleanor was the first to break. She turned to Daniel, her voice sharp, her eyes furious. You idiot, she hissed. You had one job. You were supposed to make this work. And now? We're ruined. Daniel flinched. Don't put this all on me, he snapped. This was your plan just as much as mine. And you were supposed to execute it, she screeched. William rubbed his temples, looking 10 years older. Hannah, shaking, turned to me. I want him arrested. Don't worry, I said. It's already in motion. Daniel's head snapped toward me. You wouldn't. I met his stare. Watch me. And that's when the sirens wailed outside. Daniel was arrested that night. Fraud, identity theft, bigamy. There was plenty to work with. His parents? Their estate went into foreclosure within months. Hannah and we went out for drinks the next day and toasted to the fact that we burned them to the ground. Some people say revenge isn't worth it. I disagree. Sometimes, revenge is exactly what's needed.